I got money on my mind. I'm just trying to get some dough. I ain't picking up my line unless it's money on the phone.
I couldn't go to a bank. Actually, the property wouldn't even take debt, right? Because it has to meet in a certain. There's certain things within the property that you have to have in order for the bank to finance the property. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing a master lease option with her, and what I did was sold my option or flipped my option about 6 months later to somebody who had cash to go in, fix whatever needed to be fixed, refinance the property, put new debt on it, and everybody go their separate way.
And you said that's called a master lease option?
Master lease option.
Yep. And before we get into the master lease option, because I remember we talked about it last time, I think you said something that was really important was you learned the importance about expired listings. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to graze over that. Can we go into why it's important and what is the importance of those expired listings?
Right. Expired listings spell one thing. There's a problem that nobody really wanted to fix, right? Just as simple as that. And as an entrepreneur or as an investor, we want problems, right? That's how we add value. We look for problems, try to fix those problems. That increases the value of an asset. So that was one of the things that I learned when I had got my license is the importance of expired listings, because somebody couldn't sell it or somebody couldn't buy it. There was something wrong that went wrong where you can come in, identify, hey, why didn't it sell? Right. That's why that question is so important in everything that you do. Why? Right. So understanding why it didn't sell or why she couldn't sell it, that was important because obviously due to the expired listing, but so that I can fix that why, right? Or I can avoid that why. So yeah, expired listings, man, it spells one problem. It acts as a problem where you can come in and find a solution. So yeah, that's why I would say, man, if you're a realtor out there, I never did well as an agent. Like I said, I didn't really try to be an agent, but I did know one thing. There was a list of expired listings that you can aim at if you are an agent, and if you are an investor and you have an agent, tell them to send you all the expired listings. You guys try to work some with the expired listings and find out why didn't those properties sell.
Why somebody didn't want them.
Right, right.
Appreciate that value, my brother. That's a gem, man.
For sure. And I still got to ask about these master lease options, man. Because I heard of lease options before. I listened to a whole book on lease options, and the whole idea behind it is like almost similar to seller financing, where like you pay them rent or a mortgage or whatever, and then at the end of a term you get the option to buy it. So what's the difference between that and a master lease option? Because I know you say you flip the interest.
Right. So the only difference is with single family is the lease option. With master lease option is with commercial. That's the main difference. Now with the master lease, three things. One, you don't own the property, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously the same thing when you lease option, but as far as master lease option, one, you don't own the property. Two, you're only controlling the property, right? You're only controlling the property. And three, with controlling that property, what that's allowing you to do is what's called sublease. So meaning with the 68 unit, I was able to control the whole thing. Then I take over who gets to lease an apartment. Mm-hmm. I get the control of bringing on a new property manager. I get the control of the landscaping contracts and things like that, right? I would say another thing with the master lease is with the master lease, with her, in her case, what I did was I paid her everything that came in, right? I got to take whatever I can increase off top of that, right? So let's say hypothetically the property doing 10,000 or whatever. I send her the entire 10,000. Remember, I'm taking control, so I'm controlling it, but I'm still sending it to her so that she can pay the mortgage, that so that the insurance can be taken care of and stuff like that. And anything that I can increase off top of that, I get to keep. But remember, you got vacant units, so you're losing money. So you have to use that money, find some way to renovate units or whatever the case may be in different cases. But in this case, I had to send everything to her because the property wasn't making anything in the first place, and it wouldn't take debt. So with my option to purchase at a later date, I sold that option to somebody else, and I was able to walk away. And they did whatever they did, and yeah, that's basically a master lease in a nutshell. It's basically you're controlling the entire property and subleasing everything, all of the units, and taking control of it.
It's dope. So like you didn't even have to put no money down with her with that. You just like worked out that agreement. Like, look, we still gonna pay you what you was already getting.
Right.
So she was cool with that.
Right.
She just didn't have to deal with the headache and everything that was going on with it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean the property wasn't making any money. Because if say I was to take all of the money and I mean it just wouldn't, it's like taking advantage of this lady. Because number one, she was already in California dealing with her mom. Right. So she got a property that's losing value that she bought at the height of the recession. A few years later, she needs to get rid of it. Really can't, because remember at the time when I started real estate, it was the time where people were just not starting to dabble in the real estate. This was I started in 2011, right? The recession, you had the bank collapse and the real estate collapse in 2008, 2009. Nobody wanted to touch real estate in 2009 or 10. People started dabbling in 2011. That's when I got in, right? So, so she started losing. She was losing money on this thing for years, right? And she was dealing with a mom who was sick. So I had to find a way to not take money from her because she was already losing money. So just saying, hey, look, I'm gonna give you whatever you're making right now off the property, and whatever I can do to. I didn't pretty much say whatever I can do to her, but my whole plan was to however I can increase the value of this property. Even if I got to sell my option, I'll do just that. And I just decided to just sell my option because I didn't have enough money to fix all of those units. The property wasn't making enough to take the capital and recapitalize it or take the money and put it back in the units. It just wasn't enough. So that's why I ended up selling the option.
Right.
That's a dope story, man.
Providing solutions to people.
Hell yeah.
Get you paid.
Yep. You don't need, let me also mention, you don't need to own these properties. If you can control, I forgot who I think it was one of the Rockefellers. He was on one of the Rockefellers or one of the Rothschilds. It was the woman, I can't remember her name, but she said, I do remember part of her quote, and it basically said something like, she cares not who's the president or who's in, who runs the government, anything like that. She cares about control, right? She don't care who is, I'm probably misquoting it, and hopefully the followers can follow me on this, but what basically she wants control. Right. She is not worrying about who else is owning the other seat. Right. She wants control. And I thought about that quote because it's kind of the same thing in real estate. Like, I don't care that she owns it. If I can control it, I can make me a few dollars. Right. And listeners can do the same thing. Don't if you're in a position right now where your credit bad or whatever the case may be, you can control properties. Think of it this way. I think it's the Empire State Building is under a master lease. It's under a 99-year master lease. You guys can look that up. It's under a 99-year master lease, right? and that property is worth billions of dollars, right? And it's under master lease. So anybody can do this master lease thing, right? So so that's the whole point of the master lease. I also wanted to mention that last point.
1 second, our camera just died on us. We're about to switch out the battery.
No, you good.
But man, you just bust my head with this master lease thing, dog. I ain't even think about it like that. Like they gotta use, is it a different contract y'all using or like?
It's 2 contracts. One is the lease agreement. The second is your option. That's it. And then what you want to do is you want to cloud the title. That's another little piece right there. You actually want to cloud the title because remember, you don't own it. So the person can backdoor you and actually sell it to somebody.
So what you mean by cloud the title?
Cloud the title basically is like almost like putting a lien on the property, which means if you cloud a title, for that property to close, they have to come see you. Put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much clouding the title.
We can move on into the syndication part. And we kind of talked about it. You talked about how you were able to get over 600 doors through that. And can we just first start off with what is syndication?
So syndication is basically the pooling of capital and resources to buy, let's say, a property. So this means pooling of capital and resources of your credit, being able to qualify for loans. Somebody else comes in with capital. So it's like pooling all of these, or pool, even relationships. So it's pooling all of this together in order to go off and buy another asset. The thing about syndication is, I think real estate is the only business that uses the term syndication. But if you think about it, literally everything around us is a syndication. Movies is a syndication. Put capital and resources together in order to go make, $20 million movie, so on and so forth. So oil, people who invest in oil, they also syndicate in order to go off and buy oil wells or invest in oil wells and stuff like that. So that's the gist of syndication, is pooling of capital and resources amongst people to go off and buy, an asset.
Basically group economics.
That's it. That's it. Group economics. That's it.
Okay.
Because people look at a lot of these big buildings and stuff like that. They think there's one person owning that, but it's like you mentioned, it is groups of people coming together. So can we kind of go into like, how do you form a syndication group? Like what kind of steps do you have to take to get that together?
Okay, so I think the first thing you need to understand when it comes to syndication is you don't need to know everything. You don't need to have all of the relationships, all of the money and things like that. You need to know how to play your role, right? And I'll give you an example of how I did that. But the way that you structure the group, like I said, is understanding how to play your role and understanding who you need in order to plug and play, right? So for me, for example, throughout those 600 units, I didn't, like you just mentioned, I didn't own all of those 600 units by myself. It was through other groups of co-syndicators, right? So, for example, I give you an example of one of the bigger deals that I did or was a part of. It was a $9 million raise, right? So we did $9 million on about 380 units, so something like that. We needed $9 million, and I knew my capacity, right? They brought me in because of the relationships, a few of the relationships that I had, right? I knew my role, and I knew I can bring in around $2 million in equity. I could raise around $2 million. That was the capacity that I can bring. So they were responsible for the other $7 million, right? In exchange for me bringing $7 million, I got a piece of what's called the general partnership, or the GP, right? So if you think of it like this, there's basically two investors in a syndication. You have the general partner and you have the limited partner. The limited partner is only limited to the amount of capital that they provide. The general partner, they're responsible for the day-to-day operations and making sure that we get from A to B on the entire deal, right? So I knew that the control of the deal, and for my own personal balance sheet and my own for my own personal finances and for my business, I needed to be a part of general partnership. I need to show, later on down the line when I start doing deals on, these larger deals on my own, that, hey, I've been on the general partnership side. The bank sees you different, right? So I don't know if that answers your question much, but it basically putting it together, you need a general partner, someone who's going to control the deal. You need to bring in order to get the debt and financing, you need to have someone who meets the liquidity and the net worth, right? Here's another thing. You don't need to, I definitely didn't qualify for a $27 million loan. The loan on that property was about, I think it was 27 million, somewhere around there. But my partner, he qualified for the loan, right? He had the liquidity and the net worth. What I learned over the years, like I was just saying, is one person doesn't have to meet the liquidity and the net worth in order to get the loan. So let's say we need $1 million loan. You can have one person who has liquidity and net worth. You can break that up into 4 people. One person has 250,000. The second, third, and fourth have 250,000. You have 2 people who have 500,000. So you get what I'm saying? The bank is going to bring all of those net worths together, liquidity and net worth together, and in order for you to qualify for the loan. So you need that person. You need a securities attorney, right, to make sure that you abide by securities laws. We raise capital from what's called accredited investors. So for those who don't know what accredited investor is, really quick, an accredited investor is someone who has a net worth and who makes $200,000 if they're single, $300,000 if they're married. They have to have made those incomes the previous 2 years, I believe, and then expect the same for the following year, or have a net worth of $1 million, excluding your primary residence. So that's the gist of a accredited investor. So, like I said, you need a securities attorney. You want to make sure you got a property manager lined up, for whatever you're buying, because the bank is going to want to see that. So, yes, a team of people that you already want to have ready to pull the trigger. You want to make sure that you talk to these people, get people on board, build your team before you actually identify an asset. So that's kind of what you really want to aim for.